We know. Another recruiting podcast, just what the world needed, right? But hear us out. Welcome to Hire Her, the podcast where women in talent don't just have a seat at the table, they're running the whole damn meeting. If you've ever been talked over in a strategy session, had your hiring insights ignored until middle management Brad repeated them, or just wondered why the people shaping the workforce don't actually reflect the workforce, this one's for you. We're bringing you bold conversations, real career stories, and the kind of no BS recruiting talk you actually want to hear. So buckle up, because we're about to flip the script on talent leadership, one episode at a time.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to our latest episode of the Hire Her podcast, put on by Talent Collective, our global community for women in talent acquisition. I'm Natalie, one of the co-founders, and I'm here with Krista, my partner in crime. Say hello.
Hello, everyone.
We are excited to sit down with Tracy St.Dic, who is currently the global head of talent at Zapier. Many people are probably familiar, the no-code automation platform. If not, be sure to look at it and use it because it'll save a lot of time and workflow. But we're also excited because she is going to be one of our amazing speakers at our upcoming Talent Sphere Summit. So a little context, she currently is the global head of TA, but previously she was the SVP of national recruitment at Teach for America, which is the amazing educational nonprofit. So I would love to pass it over to you, Tracy, for a little bit more context and background on your career journey.
Excellent. Thanks, Natalie and Krista, for having me. I'm so excited to be at Talent Sphere very shortly. So this is a great tee up for that. But it's so nice to meet everyone virtually. As you said, I'm the global head of talent at Zapier. I've been there for just over 3 years, and I lead functions of talent acquisition, talent intelligence, employer branding, all of our diversity partnerships and internal mobility strategy and pathways. And of course, I'm charged with figuring out talent agility as well, which is the topic for today. Just a little bit about Zapier. We are the most connected AI orchestration platform, and our mission is to make automation work for everyone. So we help businesses connect with roughly now 8,000 different apps in the automated workflows so that we can get computers to do more of the tedious work and humans can do more what they do best. And we just have under 800 staff members. We're distributed across 42 countries and we're fully remote.
Very nice. Well, thanks for that introduction, Tracy. Natalie is our Zapier expert at Talent Collective.
Hey, I love that.
I think I need to get in there and play around and see how easy it is.
It's so easy to do it now. The product has really improved even from when I joined Zapier. It's easy. It's amazing. Yeah, we can talk about that later.
Amazing. Okay, so let's get into it. So as we've mentioned already, you are going to be one of our speakers at the upcoming Talent Sphere conference in Scottsdale in June. And your topic is going to be talent agility. So we're really excited to learn more about that today and do a little bit of a teaser on the topic, especially for all those people who aren't going to be able to join us at Talent Sphere. So tell us how you define talent agility and talent mobility. And how are they interconnected in today's workplace?
Yes, I'm glad we're just starting with defining these buzzwords so we can all be on the same page. So how I think about talent agility is it's the ability of an organization and its workforce to adapt and respond to any of the changes within the business landscape and its needs and to meet talent demand. So I think about it more as a muscle that needs to be strengthened and flexed in a business. Now, building that muscle of talent agility can enhance not only organizational resilience and adaptability, but also increase engagement and skill development, which then leads to greater talent mobility. So that's how I think that they really intersect. And talent mobility or internal mobility, I think about as actual job movement within the organization. So another way to think about it is you have like talent agility is this umbrella. I think about talent agility in 2 categories. One would be definitive moves. These are like promotions, internal open roles, rotational programs. They're outcomes when jobs are actually redirected into needed areas based on business priorities. And so your internal mobilities or talent mobility practices should facilitate these like definitive, more permanent moves. And they're a way to sort of like build talent within the organization. On the other side, you have dynamic moves. So these would be things like secondments, interim assignments, cross-functional projects, initiative, like short-term initiatives, things like that. These are short-term, maybe temporary moves that allow staff to gain experience, exposure, and skill development that they need to be ready for broader internal career mobility. So that's a way to sort of borrow talent across the organization. So there's overlap, they're connected. You have similar principles of what it takes to be successful for talent agility and internal mobility or talent mobility, but they're very much interconnected.
Hi, we're Meg and Amy from The Meg and Amy Show.
We're not only tech execs and big picture thinkers, we're also best friends.
We're curious learners. And on this podcast, we're challenging the status quo and activating the future.
And we're going to give advice about work and leadership, right, Meg?
You know, we can't help ourselves. But this podcast is about exploring possibility, not being right.
That sounds refreshing.
For more, tune in to The Meg and Amy Show.
What was that fancy word you used? Secondment?
So secondment is basically like a full-time temporary move, interim assignment, usually not as long as we consider interim assignments like 6 to 12 months. So secondment could be like a quarter. It's literally saying, hey, you work on TA, now you're going to work on data for 3 months on this very specific project under a different manager and like move 90% of your time there. So it's just another type of interim assignment that we've used at Zapier.
Never heard that one before.
Me either.
Okay, so why do you think this concept of talent agility, I'm like hearing this buzzword everywhere, why is it becoming such a popular or urgent or relevant thing in the most recent years?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's arguably one of the most important concepts in building and developing your workforce right now. And it's directly tied to talent density, which has been a TA buzzword for a while now. So I think it's just so important in this landscape for teams to try to stay nimble, especially if they're in a context that's rapidly changing. Like Zapier is working in automation and AI. There is not an industry that is changing more rapidly than that. And so we need to ensure that we have constant initiatives to boost our abilities to serve customers. And so we have to be able to put the right people on the right work at the right time without having to constantly eliminate roles, rehire for different roles or skills. That's not a great situation. That's not particularly human-centered or strategic. It's not effective, nor is it efficient. And so talent agility becomes sort of the problem solve in order to be able to ensure that companies can continue to innovate, move quickly, and evolve very rapidly without having to fire, hire, rehire, all of that, which nobody wants to do.
Yeah, I feel like, to your point, when, especially within the world of talent acquisition, when all of the layoffs started happening a couple of years ago, that's when I really started hearing a lot of this, like within the TA function, right? So companies, a handful, would actually keep their talent acquisition teams or a portion of it and be able to utilize those people in other departments and have them do these, temporary assignments or
Exactly.
help out with certain projects. And what I thought was like one of the neatest outcomes was someone might realize like, actually, I like doing this other thing better and I'm better at it, right? And so, then you're like, wow, that was a problem solved we didn't even know needed solving, right?
Absolutely. And I'll even add on to that, because even if they don't end up moving to that different team or that different workflow, we found, because we did exactly what you described, we found that people brought those skills back into, in my case, recruiting and talent acquisition, and were so much of the better for it. I had folks going on secondment to product teams, to data, to total rewards. And when they came back, they either knew significantly more about that business function so they could better recruit for it. Or, for example, I had a team member who did total rewards secondments. He actually did 2. And he came back knowing just everything there was to know about our benefits and our rewards and our comp structure. He was able to educate my team, but also just be an even more incredible recruiter and educating candidates about those things too. So it feels win-win to do things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. So tell us, what signs do you look for in an organization to determine if it's truly fostering talent mobility, beyond just the internal job boards that you may see?
Yeah. So I think I'll start with agility, and then of course it relates to how we can foster mobility. So I think for agility, organizations have to do more than just have a hope and like a call to action. I think, there's a lot of CEOs or business leaders saying like, we need to be more agile. And that's great. Everyone would love to be more agile. But as with any business strategy or shift in culture, I think fostering agility, and I think fostering agility, by the way, is both business strategy and a shift in culture, but there has to be some sort of underlying infrastructure behind it. So for me, when I think about any piece of talent strategy, I think about it along a continuum. I have like a little framework. It's hire for it, develop it, facilitate it, maximize it, and reward it.
Hello, this is Michael Vandervoort from the Drive Through HR podcast, where we discuss ideas, trends, and activities that impact HR, talent, HR technology, and the workplace. Our focus is on expanding knowledge and igniting curiosity as we hear directly from people who are shaping the future of the HR industry. Join us.
Hire for it, obvious. Let's seek the right talent via hiring. Develop it. How are you thinking about expectations and the way that you do onboarding or ongoing development within your L&D team? Facilitate it would be, how do you create and maintain the infrastructure to facilitate whatever you're trying to do? So how do you facilitate agility, for example, via learning or upskilling or mentorship? The fourth piece is maximize it. That's like more about accountability for managers or people business partners to actually do the thing, right? If you facilitated it really well, and then reward it, because you want to have a constant cycle of rewarding the behavior that you want to see and that you want to grow. So in our case, how would you build a culture around valuing talent agility, reinforced through performance reviews or spot bonuses or whatever you do? So hire, develop, facilitate, maximize, and reward it is kind of what I use in my head, but it's related to how to foster mobility then. So I would look for organizations who have concrete strategies to increase agility, which leads to mobility. Like it's not enough, as you said, to just open all roles internally first and have a great internal job board. If people aren't equipped to also take on different roles, to move laterally across departments or functions because they've had the opportunity to build the skills and experiences to do so, then if you haven't been able to do that, then internal mobility will really fall flat. Then you're just really talking about promotions, and that's just one aspect of internal mobility. Or you're just hoping that you open these roles, but who can really move into them if they haven't built the exposure or the experience or the actual skills to do so. So those are the things that I would look for, is like, what's the underlying infrastructure and investment to actually make that a reality?
This is more a tactical question. I'm going off the cuff here. When you have a job rotation or secondment.
Secondment, yes, I know.
Do you automatically have to have a backfill? Like, let's say you go to sales. Do you have to have a backfill for you, or not always? Let's say it's slow in the talent team, like you just do without, or what are the contingency plans around structuring like that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because one of the things you also want to build in is how not to be territorial with your team. Like, oh, I don't want to lend my team member to this other team that might really need them because I need them, and like then I won't get the support I need, right? So you do want to be conscious of those dynamics. So that's where this idea of definitive moves versus dynamic moves come into play. For the most part, I think definitive moves, like the actual promotion, the actual like change of someone's role, those are things that would require backfills, or those are things that you think about. Do I really need to backfill that role? If it made more sense to move that person to a different role, then there's probably an inherent question you have to ask yourself of like, do I need a backfill? Is there a way to automate that or utilize AI to like fill a gap? Can I deprioritize some of that work? Does it really rise to the level of what our truest business needs are? So I always think there's like a reflection piece in there for companies to think about. But then on the dynamic moves, that's where I think we can really unlock a ton of agility, because you can move somebody for a sprint of like 4 weeks, or you could move somebody for 6 months, right? And so I think that if you're making those moves, it's sort of dependent on the situation. In our case, we haven't backfilled those. We've just sort of said, in order to put the right people on the most important work, that means inherently other work is less important. So therefore, we should push ourselves to deprioritize that, push it down, maybe to a different quarter, maybe to a different half, or take a C- on it instead of an A+. So you do have to make those trade-offs, but I think getting the clarity of what is the most important work for the organization makes those decisions a lot easier. And if everyone kind of has that mindset of like, yeah, I can put down this project because this one's actually higher value, higher impact, I'm totally fine to do that. And that one can sort of sit for a little bit. I don't need a backfill to necessarily take on that work. That's a great question.
So you mentioned this maybe a little bit already, or at least one answer that I have to this in my head. You mentioned briefly, but there may be other things, or expand on that. But what are some of the common blockers to talent agility and mobility? And then how can the people teams get ahead of those challenges?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because I would say one of the biggest, I don't want to say like downfalls, that feels dramatic, but one of the biggest blockers that I see is not actually having the infrastructure behind it. So if you're just, again, hoping through a call to action to get people to want to be more agile, that can sound very motivating and rallying in theory, but it doesn't really help your talent teams or your people teams or in our case, the Zapians, the staff members themselves know how to do it. So I think a big blocker or a challenge is like, how do you really facilitate and maximize the ability to do internal mobility and talent agility well? So it does come back to not over process, but some sort of process or infrastructure that you can actually say, this is how we do it. This is how we make opportunities accessible, visible to everybody, equitable, access to those. This is how we ensure that those things are seen, valued, taken into account for performance reviews, rewarded in some cases. So I think through, again, each of the pieces of that framework, hire, develop, maximize, reward, you don't have to do them all at once. You have to start somewhere. And so maybe it's easy if you're doing a ton of hiring to start hiring for people who have those mindsets of agility and have those capabilities, right? Maybe if you're not hiring for a lot of people, you focus on the infrastructure. Okay, how can we actually create more of these opportunities, facilitate more of these opportunities, right? Or if you're already doing those things, but it's not really changing the culture and people are feeling territorial, maybe you focus on rewarding. How do we better reward and show that we value agility and internal mobility so that more people strive to do it? So you can kind of cut in wherever you need to, but I think if you're not thinking through the continuum of how you actually go from just a call to action to like a real talent strategy, that's where I think people tend to stumble.
Yeah, I can imagine too, like the size of the company plays a big role in all of this.
Huge.
Like I've always worked at smaller companies, and so there's almost some inherent challenges with that, right? There's only so many people and so much flexibility you can have. And then like huge companies, like how do you even like see everything in there? Like it seems pretty complicated.
Yeah, I think so. I absolutely agree. And you have to apply this obviously in your context. One of the things that we've tried to do at Zapier is to figure out where are our bigger locuses of control. So for example, for me, at the beginning of the employee experience or journey, I can make more changes more rapidly about how we hire, right? And I can do that for the whole organization more seamlessly than trying to get every single person and every single role across the organization on board with this, right? Similarly, I think from a people team perspective, you just have a lot of flexibility. If you want to think about rewarding different things, how do you start to build a culture around how you do spot bonuses or things like that, right? So you can kind of think through what's going to be your areas of leverage and where do you have more of the control depending on the size of your organization. Another thing that we did at Zapier was we obviously like piloted it first, right? We ship to learn. It's one of our principles at Zapier. And so we piloted this within the people team, which currently is only about 40, 45 people before we are thinking about how do we roll this out more broadly in the organization or, add in other departments that want to adapt a similar model.
Let's shift to our friends in L&D. How do they play a role in this? I mean, some smaller companies, they may not have L&D. And so whomever's owning the programming and upskilling initiatives, how do you put that together and drive agility readiness, mobility readiness, anything learning and development related?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So you can take this very macro, like I want to think about L&D initiatives that increase this muscle of internal or of talent agility, right? That would be like very macro. I think that's a little bit more philosophical. I think on a concrete level, you could easily say within a department or within a company, again, depending on size, like consider what are the 1 to 2 skills that, if developed really well within your team or your company, would enable you to accomplish goals with fewer dependencies on other teams, right? So like, do you need an expert to accomplish what you need to be done? Or can you build those capabilities within the workforce you currently have so that they can be deployed to those different projects when you need them, which is talent agility? And again, that leads to exposure, experience, like skill building for them so that they can be more ready for those opportunities should real definitive career mobility opportunities come up. So I would really like, just here's an example on Zapier's people team. We determined that there's a small set of capabilities that if we cultivate, it would unlock a lot more agility for our team. For us, that was data fluency, product marketing, project management, and now these builder skills for our own product, building agents, building workflows to assist our work on Zapier. That doesn't mean that everyone has to be an expert at all of those things, but we can utilize our L&D trainings and enablement to train up at least a subset of folks on each one of those core skills to increase the likelihood that someone will be able to jump in and support a different initiative or project if those skills are needed, right? So that's one way to sort of start very small, is like, what would be, the 1 or 2 skills that would actually allow us to play in a lot of different spaces and to do a lot of different types of work that we don't have to then hire someone to do. Start there and then start working with your L&D team to figure out, okay, how do we build those skills? What training enablement can we do? And that can be internal or external, right? So at Zapier, we encourage people to build skill sets through our learning and development budget. If you have that, you can take classes, we can help people get certifications. Like it can be as, big in terms of an investment as you want it to be, or it can be very small with like peer-to-peer modeling and peer-to-peer training. So I think this can happen up and down, any size company, but the key there is clarity within your team leaders or organizational leaders, or what is the thing that will unlock more agility and therefore mobility. Where do we start?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. This will be our last questions. Let's go into talking a little bit about technology. So, different tools like talent marketplaces or different AI tools. So how can technology help support this whole topic and the whole mobility and agility lifecycle?
Yeah, this is a great last question because it will tee up a little bit of what we'll be talking about at Talent Sphere. So going back to the framework that I love, that I use for talent strategy: hire, develop, facilitate, maximize, and reward. I think that technology in particular, it can help you do any of those things, but where I really have seen at Zapier, it's helped us is the facilitate. Like, how do we build an infrastructure? In our case, we call it a talent agility model, or lovingly called the TAM or the TAMI. How do we build a prototype that will actually allow us to do more projects and to like actually facilitate agility? For us, that was sort of a spin on a marketplace. It allows team leaders to post a project they need to staff, share the details of that, have team members view it, apply for it if they'd like, and then get selected. And it's a pretty easy process, but it's all built on Zapier with automation and assisted by AI. So that makes the process of facilitating this and figuring out how to get alignment on projects, how to make opportunities visible and accessible, how to notify managers if people are interested, how to select, like all the things. It makes all of that logistical work easier and faster. So that's where we put in, where I personally put in a lot of my energy, is like, how do we just make this a smoother process? So it's not someone shouting into the ether, hey, I need help, and someone else being like, oh yeah, I'm interested in helping you. And it's a lot more fluid and seamless in just the way that we operate in our planning and things like that. So for us, technology has played a really big role in that particular piece of making that work. And I think there's probably multiple examples you can do to ensure that wherever you have a gap in your talent strategy, you have a place to sort of supplement technology for that, but not replace the human elements, of course.
I said it was going to be my last question, but I actually have one little more. Okay. So is this housed in talent acquisition or like overall people operations?
Yeah. So it was because of my role, it was really born out of talent acquisition because I think about the continuum of hiring through all the way through internal mobility. But I have to emphasize that you have to be working with your people team partners. Again, like especially those places of like, I can't reward Zapians for this, right? So like I have to be working with Total Rewards. I have to be working with our people business partners and L&D who creates our impact reviews and our performance reviews, right? So it has to be a full team effort. But in our case, it was really brought about by TA, specifically because we want to make sure that we're also building an organization in terms of our talent brand where we can honestly tell candidates, come into Zapier, you're going to get to work on all sorts of projects. You're going to get to have opportunities to build skills in different spaces. And that's sort of what our talent strategy and philosophy is. And so that's why it felt important for me to not leave it in someone else's hands, but really like tackle it head on because it's also a great story and narrative for like how you operate at your company.
Yeah, big talent attraction tool. It gets people excited. That's a differentiator of Zapier versus, other companies they might join. Well, really amazing conversation, Tracy. Thank you for everything you've contributed and will contribute at TalentSphere as well. I know I learned a lot. And where can our listeners find you?
All the usual places. You can find me on LinkedIn. We actually just had very recently our big enterprise launch. So there's a lot of really cool content and things like that we're talking about in terms of TA use cases. So yeah, find me on LinkedIn. Well, find me at TalentSphere. So there you go.
That's right. Be there June 3rd and 4th in Scottsdale. Well, thanks again, Tracy. We really appreciate you coming on today and sharing all of your knowledge with our listeners. Until next time, hope everyone enjoys your day. Feel free to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Love the convo? Then don't stop here. Check out Talent Collective, where badass women in recruiting connect, grow, and maybe, just maybe, take over the world. Hit that subscribe button, share with your crew, and let's keep proving that talent isn't just a pipeline problem, it's a leadership revolution. See you next time, unless you're ghosting us like that candidate who swore they were excited about the offer.